As you can see, the topic of today's discussion, I myself, Arindam Dash from Department of Information Technology, PNC, and the topic of today's discussion is Indian knowledge system, its languages, arts, and culture. So let's start the topic. So at the beginning, we are discussing the foundation of IKS or Indian knowledge system. So we already know that Indian civilization was started from Vedic civilization. It was the prehistoric era, and it has always attached some great values to the knowledge since the inception. And it has witnessed its amazingly large body of intellectual texts, the world's largest collection of manuscripts, the attested tradition of texts, thinkers, creative faculties, and schools in widest number of domains of knowledge. So, uh, since the beginning, the knowledge or values to the knowledge has been typically emphasized in the Indian tradition or Indian knowledge system. And as an example, you can see that in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the book, the religious book, uh, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that knowledge is the great liberator and purifier of the self. So that was the value of knowledge that has been bestowed since the ancient period of India. And comparatively to the recent times, Indian knowledge system is uh, is forwarded or taken care of by some eminent important people, important persons like Sri Aurobindo, you can see. And according to him, knowledge or Gyana remaining at the center of all rational and speculative inquiry in India. So this is the absolute power in terms of Indian knowledge system or Indian tradition, and it is like a never-ending flow of a river, like Ganga, as mentioned in Vedas and Upanishads. And coming to the different terms of Indian knowledge system, there are some vocabulary. Like if somebody wants to gather some idea of or knowledge about a subject, he or she must know the vocabulary. So or the terms and terminologies. So as per that aspect, there are some new terms we can learn here, like three terms we can see, like darshana, jnana, and vidya. So darshana is the philosophy. Darshana, that is the philosophy, is the system, quote unquote system. That means the point of view which yields or leads to jnana. So darshana is the tool or the instrument using which we can reach to the jnana or knowledge. And when the knowledge is gathered about a particular domain, is organized and systematized for purposes for the reflection and pedagogy, it is called the vidya or discipline. So that means it is when something is gathered, that is the knowledge. The way of gathering or the instrument of gathering is called the darshana, and when that knowledge, gathered knowledge, becomes purposeful or it is purposefully gathered knowledge, then the entire thing becomes the vidya or discipline. Okay. And coming with further elaboration, we can see the entire body of organized knowledge is divided into two sets, as mentioned in the Mundaka Upanishad. It's a particular sect of Upanishad. There are over 200 Upanishads in the traditional literature in India, and out of 108, I mean the traditional number is 108, but actually there are 200 plus Upanishads, and out of that only 10 are of the principal Upanishads of maximum importance or significance, you can say. Like this 10 is Isha, Kena, Katha, Rashan, Mundaka, Mandukya, Tatiriya, Itareya, Chandogya, and Brihadaranyaka. So these 10 are the apex importance. And out of that, this particular mention, as I did in the second paragraph, as this knowledge is divided into two sets. One is called Paravidya and second is the Aparavidya. And knowledge of the ultimate principle, that is Paramatma or Brahma, that is the metaphysical domain, it is called, and this is called the Paravidya, which is related to this Paramatma or Brahma. It's not Brahman actually, it is Brahma, which is in Hindu philosophy, what we call Brahma, Param Brahma, or Paramatma, this kind of thing. So this is called Paravidya, and that is of course of metaphysical domain. And the secondary one, which is anything other than that, which is called Akshara Brahma, or knowledge of worldly domain. So there is a clear, you can see a clear discrimination of knowledge which is associated to God or Ishar Ek and Aditya, this kind of things. And the second one is anything but that. So one side is spiritual and other or metaphysical, and second side is the physical, which is of Akshara Brahmana or Aparavidya. So coming from here, there are some further terms and terminologies like which we people will be more interested in, maybe because here these two terms are Gyana and Bikana. So since we are studying engineering, so we should know the difference between which is called Vijnana and what is called Gyana. The knowledge of facts of the perceptible world, it is these two terms are related to this knowledge of or facts of perceptible world. The first kind of knowledge is observational and it is gained by the eyes. What is the first kind? That is the Gyana. Gyana is observed knowledge, and which is perceived or gathered through the eyes. And the second one, that is Vijnana, is experiential and is gained by the inner self. And the inner self is called in this traditional literature as Drashta. This inner self is called Drashta, and through Drashta, we go through the different level of experiences in order to achieve the knowledge, or in terms of Vijnana. So first one is what we get in our eyesight, that is perceptible knowledge or facts about the perceptible world. And then the second one, the Vijnana, is the more of experiential knowledge, and through the observation or this kind of observation or visualization, which is called Drashta. In case of Gyana, or the first one, the whole cognizing self is Bahirmukhi, that is directed towards outside, and that involved to the outer world. And for the second one, in the other, the whole cognizing self is Antarmukhi, or tuned or turned to the inwards of one's self. So we can easily understand the difference between which is direct towards outside or outer world, and Antarmukhi is inside of a human being. So so that means we can understand that when we get the Vigyana from Gyana, we come to that stage or that level, the understanding or assimilating the knowledge within somebody's inner self with a reflective or introspective view, that is of topmost importance. That is quite evident from this discussion. So, to acquire the first kind of knowledge, only the sensory apparatus, including the mind, has to be prepared. But to acquire the second kind of knowledge, the knower has to go through a process of preparation that is called, this process of preparation is called sadhana, or for knowledge acquisition. And so sensory apparatus is our typical, we have five sensory organs. We know that eyes, nose, ears, tongue, and skin, right? These five are our sensory organs, so sensory apparatus. But for observational knowledge, we can gather knowledge through the sensory apparatus. But if we want to have, or we are going to land on to the stage of Vijnana, then we have to go through a process of sadhana or knowledge acquisition. Knowledge acquisition and knowledge assimilation. So this is the discussion, and there is an example, the Jaina sect, Jaina religion. I mean, we know the Jaina religion. Their thought also makes a distinction between pratyaksha jnana, which is knowledge present to the self, and paroksha jnana, which is the knowledge present to the senses and mind. That is indriya manasapeksha. So pratyaksha jnana, we can understand that this is a direct kind of pratyaksha means direct, and paroksha means indirect. So the knowledge present to the self, that is atma sapeksha, that is the knowledge which is coming, or which is liberated from somebody's inside or inner part. So that is atma sapeksha. And paraksha jnana, which is present to the senses and mind, which is more you can see it's more superficial in nature. That is indriya manasapeksha. So just wait a second. Some people are waiting here. Anyway. Okay. We are talking about the Jaina sect. The Jaina thinkers interestingly define perception as Atma Pratyaksha, which is present to the inner self and not as the present to the senses. So, to put in a contemporary vocabulary, Indian mind has depended more on hypothetical deductive methodology than on observational inductive methodology. So that is the distinction from Indian way of thinking or Indian way of knowledge gathering on and acquisition and assimilation. That tells about whatever you get, whatever you perceive, first reflect it within inside of you. Then you can make a deductive knowledge uh, or a conclusive knowledge out of that. So that is the way of Indian way of thinking, and that creates the foundation of Indian knowledge system. So in summary, in the above discussion, we can get an overall idea of Indian knowledge system and its functional components to some extent. And as far as the initiative from the government is concerned, you can see here at the bottom, that is the education minister at the central government, R.P. Nishank, and he was the erstwhile education minister, not at the present. in the year 2020 announced the Center of Excellence for Indian Knowledge System, that is COE for Center of Excellence, IKS, Indian Knowledge System, to be set up at IIT Kharagpur. And IIT Kharagpur for interdisciplinary research on various branches of the Indian knowledge system. Accordingly, uh, accordingly, the Center of Excellence for Indian Knowledge System has been established to bring forth a comprehensive research development and outreach-based promotion for various domains of Indian knowledge system. Okay. So that is a recent development, and you can see the government is emphasizing with a very priority based. I mean, you can see its importance is realized, and government is taking initiative to implement it for the future generations of India. Now we can see what is Indian languages. So we know the Sanskrit is the most traditional language, which is typically of Indian origin, but it has spread out across many continents and nations across the globe. And the Rigvedic Sanskrit is one of the oldest attestations of of any Indo-Aryan languages, and it is one of the earliest attested members of the Indo-European languages. Uh, you may be knowing, or you could be knowing, that this Sanskrit is also was very much in practice in the traditional languages of Europe, like Germany or northern part of Europe. This Sanskrit language was in practice in few thousand years. So even if today the German universities in the linguistic department they teach us the Sanskrit as language, and it is the most scientific language. Let me tell you, because of many reasons. So the discovery of Sanskrit by early European explorer of India led to the development of comparative scholars of philology. The scholars of the 18th century were struck by the far-reaching similarity of Sanskrit, both in grammar and vocabulary, to the classical language in Europe. So you can see there is a similarity in terms of grammar, vocabulary with Sanskrit, with the classical languages of Europe. That was I just mentioned a few minutes back. So intensive scientific studies that followed have established the Sanskrit and many Indian derivatives languages belong to the family, which includes English, German, French, Italian, Spanish, Celtic, Greek, Baltic, Armenian, Persian, Tocharian, and many other Indo-European languages. All these languages were has a common ancestry of Sanskrit being the original one, from which these languages has descended. And in case of Indian language, Tamil is one of the India's major classical languages, especially in the South India, southern part of India, and descends from Proto-Dravidian languages spoken around the third millennium before Christian era in peninsular India. That means the Tamil was a language that was not typically descended from Sanskrit, because you know that there is a great distance in terms of northern part of India and southern part of India, and southern part of India has retained the more indigenous cultures and practices, which was not happened in the northern counterparts, because it was invaded by the outside attackers, like you can see different Muslim attackers from different Central Asian nations, like these Taimurlang, Nadir Shah, so and many, too many to name. So they could not hold their traditional features intact as it was earlier. But on the contrary, southern part of India has held their or maintained or sustained their cultural values and practices in comparison to the northern part. So that was Proto-Dravidian language, the ancestor of Tamil language. And Tamil literature has existed for over 2000 years, and the earliest epigraphic towards the epigraphic records found date from around 3rd century BCE. So that's it. I mean, exception always proves the rules, right? So it's an exception. It has got significant reason behind that. So Sanskrit is not actually the mother language here. Okay. I don't know why I cannot move on. Okay. Now coming to the area of arts, especially arts and culture, there are two divisions like performing arts and the performed arts, visual arts. So performing arts, you can see languages. We have completed the language part, and in performing arts, we have dance, Indian dance. I mean, which is called classical dance methods or styles, gharanas. India has had long romance with the art of dance. The Hindu Sanskrit text Natya Shastra, that is the science of dance, and Abhinaya Darpana, the mirror of gesture, are estimated to be from 200 BCE to early centuries of the first millennium Christian era. Indian dance includes 8 classical dance forms. Yes.
Sir, sir, what is the meaning of millennium?
Millennium. Are you asking about millennium or what? Can you repeat?
Yes, sir.
Millennium
Millennium.
is 1,000 years. Okay. Century. Millennium is a particular, specific, say, 1,000 years is a millennium, as far as my knowledge goes. Centuries or 10 centuries, uh, so that forms a millennium. Okay, so according
Yes,
to
sir.
Indian National Academy of Music, Dance and Drama, Bharatanatyam is the classical dance style of state of Tamil Nadu, and Kathak is of Uttar Pradesh. Similarly, Kathakali and Mohiniyattam of Kerala, Kuchipudi is of Andhra Pradesh, Yakshagana is of Karnataka, Manipuri of Manipur, Odissi of Odisha, state of Odisha, and Satriya is of Assam. So these are the traditional dance forms which you can see in different parts of the nation. Okay. Similarly, we have traditional drama. We have already discussed the term. This is the mirror of gesture, Abhinaya Darpana. The Indian drama and theatre has a long history alongside its musical and dance. Kalidasa's play, like Shakuntala and Meghaduta, are some of the older dramas following the rules of the Vasa. Vasa was another playwright. And Kutiyattam of Kerala is the only surviving specimen of the ancient Sanskrit theatre, thought to have originated around the beginning of the Common Era, and is officially recognized by UNESCO as a masterpiece of oral and intangible heritage of humanity. And it strictly follows the Natya Shastra of Indian knowledge system, Indian drama, traditional drama style. Coming to the area of music, it's an integral part of Indian culture always. Natya Shastra, a 2000-year-old Sanskrit text, describe the 5 system of taxonomy to classify musical instruments. Classify the musical instruments. One of these ancient Indian system classifies the musical instruments into 4 groups. We actually have 4 groups of musical instruments, and according to 4 primary sources of vibration. So actually, musical instruments in traditional India has been categorized in terms of the sources of vibration. Like, first one is the string category, second one is a membrane category, third one of cymbal, and fourth one is of air. So if you can go to the examples of it, like I do not know whether it's up there. We can understand this kind of uh, sitar, this veena, or this sarod, this kind of things, or sarangi, this kind of, these are the string instruments, right? And in terms of membranes, we can understand which is called uh, khol, pakwaj, dhol, this kind of things. Drum kind of instruments, these are membranous instruments. And cymbals is kind of, you can see the conjuni or this kind of things, which are typical, just heating a pair of metallic plates with each other. That is kind of cymbals kind of things, which are which of course gives a metallic sound, right? Or the typical bells, which is used in during worship, this, which is called ghanta. This is called also cymbals kind of things. And fourth is the air instrument, which is typically, example is a flute. Flute is a air instrument. Okay, the source of vibration is air. Different kinds of flutes and all. Or you can see, you can take example of Shehnai, right? Bismillah Khan. According to Rees Flora, he's an eminent columnist and writer of who has made research in Indian traditional and culture. Archaeologists have also reported the discovery of 3,000 old, 20 carefully shaped, polished basalt lithophone in the highlands of Orissa. And the oldest preserved example of Indian music are the melodies of Samaveda that are still sung in certain Vedic stotra sacrifices. This is earliest account of Indian musical hymns. So that is a typical example that we know the Vedas has 4 parts, like Greek, Sam, Yaju, and Atharva. So there is third Veda is the Samaveda, which is actually of to be orated, to be sung in groups, in chorus. So that is a very early form of musical. Okay, somebody has written trumpet. Okay, trumpet is not a string instrument. It's air instrument. Yeah. Okay, coming to visual arts, paintings. Okay, we all always know, we all have since we have studied our history books, the artworks which we found in Ajanta, Ellora, and different parts of India, specifically cave paintings and cave drawings, cave sculptures. This was very predominant. This testify to the love of naturalism. Most early in the medieval art in India is Hindu or Buddhist or Jain. A freshly made colored floor design, Rangoli, is still a common sight outside the doorstep of many South Indian, South Indian or even North Indian homes today. The most prominent painter in the traditional India, especially he was not from traditional India. He was took part in medieval India, I should say. His name was Raja Ravi Verma, and uh, he has contributed a lot, a very significant part of Indian art, because whatever form of Hindu goddess and gods and goddesses we see in the calendars today, the first formation was made by uh, Raja Ravi Baba, and so he is a pioneer in this field. So, in terms of sculpture, the first sculpture in India was found in Indus Valley civilization, northern part, where stone and bronze figures have been discovered, and later, as Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism developed it further, and India produced some extremely intricate bronze works, and as well as temple carvings. We all know that, and some huge shrines, such as one of the what we find in Ellora. Actually, Ellora is not painting. Ellora is of sculpture. Ajanta is of painting. Ajanta and Khajuraho. Sorry, Ellora and Khajuraho is of sculpture. This is sculpture nature, but Ajanta is of painting, cave painting, and were not constructed by using the blocks, but carved out of solid rock. So, we can find different cultures throughout the ages in different, uh, I mean, religious structures like mandirs in different parts of India. So, coming to the Indian culture, art, we have completed the art forms. We have completed the vocabularies of the Indian tradition and knowledge and tradition. Coming to the culture of India, India is one of the most ethnically and religiously diverse countries in the world. And the concept of Indian culture is a very complex and complicated matter because we are all united under diversity, right? So, Indian citizens are divided into various ethnic, religious, caste, linguistic, and regional groups, making true realities of Indianness, and it is fairly complicated. This is why the conception of Indianness or Indian identity poses certain difficulties and presupposes a series of assumptions about the concisely the expression of Indian means. Actually, this question is asked by the foreigners when an Indian person moves abroad. Then he side by side, the foreigner can find a person or Sardar who is, put on a turban on his head, and somebody is having tilaks and chandans on his forehead. So both are claiming to be Indians, but he can see in his naked eye that these two people are appearing completely different. So how can it be possible? Then he has to understand that the Indianness means a complete set of diversity under which the Indianness is defined. So, however, despite facing different questions and challenges at different times, the prime tune of unity in diversity has never been faded out inside the Indian territory throughout the ages. That is the true spirit of India. So, thank you. I have completed my discussion. Anybody who wants to ask something to me, please go ahead.
স্যার
Yeah.
হাউ মানে আমরা কিভাবে এই জিনিসগুলো আরো জানতে পারবো?
এই যে আমি যে এখন যে পেজটা খুলে রেখেছি, দেখো দুটো রেফারেন্স আছে, দুটো না তিনটে রেফারেন্স আছে। উইকিপিডিয়া ইজ কমন টু অল, বাট ফার্স্ট টু রেফারেন্সেস একটা বই আছে যেটা হচ্ছে ইন্ডিয়ান নলেজ সিস্টেম ভলিউম 1, তুমি নেটে ডাউনলোড করতে পেরে যাবে, এডিটেড বাই কপিল কাপুর অ্যান্ড অবধেশ কুমার সিং। এই বইটা যদি পড়ো তাহলে তুমি বেশ কিছু জিনিস জানতে পারবে, আর তার থেকে যদি বেশি জানতে চাও তাহলে তো একটু লাইব্রেরি যেতে হবে, বাবা তোমাকে একটু ন্যাশনাল লাইব্রেরি বা একটু গ্রুপ করতে হবে।
স্যার আমাদের কলেজের লাইব্রেরিতে
কলেজের লাইব্রেরিতে দেখতে পারো, বাট খুব একটা, এখানে তো আমাদের ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং সাবজেক্ট বই রাখতে আমাদের মানে অ্যাকোমোডেশন ওভার হয়ে যায়, কিন্তু খুব একটা সম্ভব হয় না। তবে তোমাদের একটা জিনিস আমি বলতে পারি, ন্যাশনাল ডিজিটাল লাইব্রেরি বলে একটা জিনিস হয়েছে, জানো তো? NDL না এলএল বোধহয় এরকম একটা না, সার্চ দিলেই পেয়ে যাবে, গুগল সার্চ করো ন্যাশনাল ডিজিটাল লাইব্রেরি, সেখানে তুমি প্রচুর এই ধরনের বই পাবে। মানে অ্যাপার্ট ফ্রম এনি, মানে দেয়ার গুগল সার্চ, তুমি যদি ওই এরিয়াটায় সার্চ করো ন্যাশনাল ডিজিটাল লাইব্রেরিতে, সেখানে তুমি অনেক ধরনের জিনিস পাবে, মানে এই ইন্ডিয়ান ন্যাশনাল ইন্ডিয়ান নলেজ সিস্টেমের ওপরে। অ্যাপার্ট ফ্রম দ্যাট, তোমরা যদি মনে করো তোমাদের সাবজেক্টের কোনো বই বা কোনো ধরনের রিসার্চ পেপার খুঁজবে যদি দরকার হয়, এখন তোমরা সবেমাত্র ফার্স্ট ইয়ারে আছো, যত সময় যাবে তত দরকার পড়বে, তখন প্রয়োজনটা ফিল করবে, দেন ইউ ক্যান গেট এ রেফারেন্স টু দ্য ইন্ডিয়ান লাইব্রেরি। ঠিক আছে?
স্যার বলছি ওইটার একবার নামটা আরেকবার বলবেন, যেটা একটু বললেন।
কোনটা বলো তো?
ইন্ডিয়ান ডিজিটাল লাইব্রেরি নাকি বলছেন?
ন্যাশনাল ডিজিটাল লাইব্রেরি, তুমি গুগল সার্চ করো এখানেই পেয়ে যাবে, ন্যাশনাল ডিজিটাল লাইব্রেরি, এনডিএল। এনডিএলটা মানে আমি সাইটের নামটা এক্ষুনি বলতে পারছি না, আমার একটু দেখতে হবে। ন্যাশনাল ডিজিটাল লাইব্রেরি এই কথাটা, এই ফ্রেজটা দিয়ে যদি গুগল সার্চ করো পেয়ে যাবে। ঠিক আছে, তাহলে আমি দেখছি, দাঁড়া তোমরা একটু লাইনে থাকো, আমি মেশিনে আছি,
আমি একটা লিংক পাঠিয়েছি, মনে হয় পেয়েছি খুঁজে।
আচ্ছা, হতে পারে, দেখছি চ্যাটে দিয়েছো তো? হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, এনডিএল আইআইটি কেজিপি ডট এসি ডট ইন, এটাতে দেখতে পাবো। এটাতে দেখো অনেকের মধ্যে, এটা পুরোপুরি অ্যাকচুয়ালি এটা বোধহয় প্রথমে আইআইটি কেজিপির ইনিশিয়েটিভ ছিল, বাট লেটার অন ইট হ্যাজ বিন স্প্রেড আউট টু অল দ্য ন্যাশনাল লেভেল। হ্যাঁ, এই সাইটটাই। তোমরা কি আমার পেজটা দেখতে পাচ্ছ? উল্লাবাবু, শেয়ারটা মনে হয় চলে গেছে না?
স্যার প্রেজেন্টেশনটা
প্রেজেন্টেশনটা ব্রেক না করলে হবে না কিন্তু সেটা। ঠিক আছে, এইবার দেখতে পাবো। এইটা দেখ, এই লুকটাই, এটাই আমি বলছিলাম। এখানে দেখো স্কুল লেভেল থেকে দেখো আইআইটি, যেই এখন লোকে যেটা বেশি চায় সেগুলো তো আগে থাকবেই, তাই না? The most popular ones are posted at the topmost part, but you can find it whatever you want to search, you can write it here, like I hope it will show up. Also you can change the language.
Sir, is today's class over?
হ্যাঁ, it's over for today. ঠিক আছে, এখানে দেখো you can see lot of documents as surfaced up, right? আমি আর এখানে ওপেন করছি না, কারণ এখানে আমার তোমরা নিজেদের মতো দেখে নিও। If you want to ask something, you can ask.